The ship came without warning. One moment, the sky was clear. The next, it was filled with a vessel so vast it seemed to swallow the horizon. It hovered silently over major cities worldwide, its metallic surface reflecting sunlight in prismatic patterns that hypnotized those who stared too long. Then came the beams, brilliant columns of light that swept through buildings, streets, and homes, selecting individuals seemingly at random. Maya Nguyen felt the strange tingling sensation just before the light enveloped her. A combat veteran who had served 3 tours in the Outer Rim colonies, she had been training in the woods outside her rural home when it happened. As the light intensified, she reached instinctively for her survival knife, only to feel her fingers pass through it as if it were made of smoke. The world around her dissolved into particles of light, and then there was only darkness. When she regained consciousness, she found herself lying on hard ground in a clearing surrounded by unfamiliar vegetation. The air felt heavier, slightly richer in oxygen than Earth's atmosphere, and the gravity pulled at her limbs with unexpected force. 2 suns hung in an alien sky, one a familiar yellow, the other a distant red dwarf that cast an eerie crimson glow on the landscape. "Where the hell am I?" Maya muttered, pushing herself to her feet. She checked herself for injuries and found none. But all her equipment was gone, even her watch and the titanium dog tags she never removed. "You're in what they call the arena," came a voice from behind her. Maya spun around, dropping into a defensive stance. A tall, lanky man with disheveled gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses stepped out from behind a tree-like structure with purple bark. He wore what appeared to be the remains of a lab coat, now tattered and stained with substances Maya couldn't identify. "Dr. Elias Hammond," he said, extending a hand. "Xenobiologist from the Europa Research Station. Been here for, well, I've marked about 17 rotations of this planet, whatever that means in Earth time." Maya cautiously shook his hand. "Maya Nguyen, former military. What is this place?" Dr. Hammond gestured broadly at their surroundings. "As far as I can tell, it's a controlled environment on an uncharted planet. The atmosphere has been adjusted to be breathable for humans, but the flora and fauna are completely alien. And we're not alone here." As if on cue, a rustle in the underbrush announced the arrival of 2 more people. A stocky woman with calloused hands and sun-darkened skin emerged first, followed by a younger man whose nervous eyes darted constantly between the trees. "This is Maria Alvarez," Dr. Hammond said, indicating the woman. "She was a farmer in rural Argentina before they took her. And that's Raj Patel, mechanical engineer from Mumbai." Maria nodded curtly at Maya, while Raj offered a weak smile. "There are others too," Dr. Hammond continued. "About 20 of us in total, spread across this sector of the arena. We've been gathering, trying to figure out what's happening and how to survive." "And what exactly is happening?" Maya asked, her military training kicking in as she assessed their surroundings for threats and resources. Dr. Hammond's expression darkened. "We're part of some kind of experiment, or game. The beings who brought us here, we call them the observers, they appear occasionally, watching from floating platforms. They've established rules." "Rules?" Maya frowned. "No advanced technology." Raj interjected, his voice tinged with frustration. "Nothing beyond what humans had in prehistoric times. If you try to build anything more complex than basic tools, they—" He trailed off, looking at Dr. Hammond. "They eliminate you." The scientist finished grimly. "We've lost 3 people who tried to create simple mechanical devices. The observers want us to survive using only our most primitive skills." Maya absorbed this information, her mind already calculating strategies. So, what's the objective? Just to stay alive? Maria spoke for the first time, her voice rough but determined. That's what we thought at first. But there's more to it. They're testing us against other species. We've seen evidence of other alien races being subjected to the same experiments in different sectors. It's a comparative survival study, Dr. Hammond explained. The observers are highly advanced, perhaps millions of years beyond our civilization. They seem to be studying evolutionary adaptability across different sentient species. Maya nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. And they've stripped us of our technology because they want to see how we perform at a baseline level. Exactly, Dr. Hammond confirmed. But they've underestimated us. Humans had fire, tools, and weapons before these aliens even made camp. We've been survivors since long before we had smartphones and fusion drives. So, what's the plan? Maya asked, feeling a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was a combat situation, just with different parameters than she was used to. Survive, Maria said simply, and find a way to beat their game. As the crimson sun began to set, leaving only the yellow one to illuminate the strange landscape, Dr. Hammond led them to the camp the humans had established. It was a crude but effective settlement nestled against the base of a rocky outcropping. Simple shelters made from branches and large leaves provided protection from the elements, while a small fire burned in a stone circle at the center of the camp. Several people moved about, performing various tasks, sharpening sticks into spears, weaving plant fibers into rope, preparing what appeared to be food from local plants and small creatures. Their clothes were earth-made but showed signs of wear and adaptation, sleeves torn off to deal with the heat, pants cut to make carrying pouches. Dr. Hammond introduced Maya to the others. There was Wei Lin, a soft-spoken botanist who had been cataloging edible plants. Thomas Green, a former park ranger whose wilderness survival skills had proven invaluable. Sofia Popova, an Olympic athlete whose physical prowess made her the group's best hunter, and several others, each bringing unique skills to their impromptu community. We're missing some, Dr. Hammond noted as they completed the tour. Lou, Victor, and Amara are out scouting the northern ridge. We've been mapping the arena, trying to determine its boundaries. Maya studied the crude map they had created on a flat piece of bark, noting the strategic positions they had marked. Water sources, dangerous terrain, sightings of the observers' platforms. How often do they watch? She asked, unpredictably. Thomas answered, sometimes days will pass without a sighting. Other times, they hover overhead for hours, recording everything we do. And they don't interfere unless someone breaks the technology rule? Not usually, Sophia said, her accent revealing Eastern European origins. But they've introduced challenges. Challenges? Dr. Hammond's face grew grim. Predators. Environmental hazards. Once, they blocked access to our main water source for 3 days. They're testing our responses, our adaptability. Maya considered this. And no one has tried to communicate with them? A heavy silence fell over the group. Amanda did. Raj said quietly. She was a linguist, tried to establish contact using symbols drawn in the dirt. The next day, she was gone. We found only her drawings, burnt into the ground. Maya nodded slowly, processing the implications. So, direct confrontation isn't an option? Not yet. Dr. Hammond agreed. First, we need to understand them better. Learn the rules of their game. and build our strength. As night fell completely, the group gathered around the fire. The flames cast flickering shadows on their faces, highlighting the determination in their eyes despite their circumstances. They shared the day's findings. A new source of protein-rich insect-like creatures discovered by Wei. A potential medicinal plant identified by Dr. Hammond. Unusual atmospheric disturbances noted by Raj that might indicate a boundary of the arena. Maya listened carefully. Impressed by their organization and resilience, these weren't soldiers, but they had adapted to their situation with remarkable efficiency. Still, she could see the gaps in their strategy, the vulnerabilities in their defenses. "We need better weapons," she said finally, interrupting a discussion about water purification and a more defensible position. Sophia eyed her skeptically. "The observers don't allow complex weapons." "I'm not talking about guns or explosives," Maya clarified. "I'm talking about bows, spears with detachable heads, traps, things humans have been making for thousands of years. Primitive but effective." "She's right," Thomas nodded. "We've been focused on survival, but not on protection or offense." "Offense?" Maria questioned. "Against what? The observers would eliminate us if we tried to attack them." Maya shook her head. "Not against the observers, at least not directly. But you said they introduce challenges, predators, hazards. We need to be ready to fight back. And we need to start thinking about escape." A murmur ran through the group at the mention of escape. "There is no escape," an older man named Karim said bitterly. "This is their arena, their game. Every game has rules." Maya countered. "And every rule has loopholes. We just need to find them." Dr. Hammond studied her with newfound interest. "What do you propose?" Maya took a stick and began drawing in the dirt beside the fire. "First, we reorganize the camp. Defense in layers, early warning systems, escape routes." She sketched rapidly, the military strategies coming naturally to her. "Second, we expand our resource gathering. We need better food sources, more reliable water, materials for stronger tools and weapons." She looked up at the group, meeting their eyes one by one. "And third, we start testing the boundaries, not just the physical ones, but the rules themselves. What exactly counts as prohibited technology? How far can we push before they intervene? Knowledge is power, and right now, they have all of it." There was silence as they considered her words. Then Sophia spoke, a hint of hope in her voice. "I was working on a bow design, using sinew from those snake-like creatures in the eastern marsh. I've been experimenting with fermentation," Wei added quietly. "The purple fruits, they produce a liquid that could be useful for preserving food, or other applications." One by one, they began to share ideas they had been hesitant to pursue. Innovations that pushed the boundaries of primitive technology but might not violate the observer's rules explicitly. As the night deepened, a new sense of purpose filled the camp. They were no longer just surviving. They were beginning to fight back. The next morning, Maya woke before dawn and slipped out of the camp to assess their surroundings with fresh eyes. The alien landscape was beautiful in its strangeness. Towering vegetation with structures unlike anything on Earth. Crystal formations that seemed to grow like plants. Animals that defied categorization. She found a high point overlooking the camp and sat in silence, watching as the yellow sun rose first, followed by its red companion. The dual sunlight cast complex shadows that shifted and merged in patterns that seemed almost meaningful. "Beautiful, isn't it?" came Dr. Hammond's voice as he climbed up to join her. Despite everything, I can't help but appreciate the scientific marvel of this place. Maya nodded. Know your battlefield. First rule of combat. Is that how you see this, as a battle? Everything is a battle when your life is at stake. Maya replied, but battles can be won with strategy, not just strength. Dr. Hammond sat beside her, his eyes scanning the horizon. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about testing boundaries. There's something I haven't shared with the others yet. He hesitated, then continued. I've been conducting small experiments with the local fungi. Some of them have properties that might allow us to create rudimentary chemical compounds. Maya raised an eyebrow. Chemical compounds? Like what? Nothing complex enough to trigger the observer's technology prohibition, I think, but potentially useful. Adhesives, pigments, and possibly, he lowered his voice, substances that affect consciousness. You're talking about drugs? In a sense, but not recreational ones. I believe some of these fungi might enhance certain cognitive functions, awareness, memory, pattern recognition. If I'm right, they could give us an edge. Maya considered this. That's risky. If the observers consider it too advanced. I know. That's why I haven't pursued it further. But with your military background, I thought you might have insight into how far we can push. Maya was silent for a moment, weighing the potential benefits against the dangers. Start small, she finally said. Test it on plants or the smaller animals first. Document everything meticulously. Look for any sign of observer interest or intervention. Dr. Hammond nodded. Methodical, scientific, I can do that. As they made their way back to camp, Maya noticed a shift in the atmosphere among the group. The resignation that had permeated their actions before was being replaced by purpose. Raj and Thomas were constructing more sophisticated shelters, incorporating defensive features Maya had suggested. Sophia and 2 others were crafting weapons, bows with carefully shaped limbs for maximum power, spears with detachable heads that could remain embedded in prey or predators. Maria approached Maya, extending a crude but effective knife she had fashioned from a hard, stone-like material found near the river. Thought you might want this. Military types usually like to have a blade handy. Maya accepted it with a nod of thanks, testing its weight and edge. It was surprisingly well balanced. This is good work. Maria shrugged. My grandfather was a blacksmith. I used to watch him work when I was a girl. Never thought those memories would be useful here, of all places. Over the next several days, Maya integrated herself into the group's routines while subtly reshaping them. She organized hunting parties with clear protocols for safety and efficiency. She established a rotating watch schedule to ensure they were never caught off guard. She began training sessions where she taught basic combat techniques that required no technology, leveraging body weight, using the environment as a weapon, identifying vulnerabilities in larger opponents. The observers appeared twice during this time, their floating platforms hovering silently above the camp. Recording devices extended like insectile appendages. The humans pretended to ignore them, continuing their activities with forced casualness. But Maya studied them carefully from the corner of her eye, noting every detail of their appearance and behavior. The beings themselves remained mostly hidden behind the tinted shields of their platforms. But occasionally, Maya caught glimpses. Tall, slender forms with elongated limbs and smooth, reflective skin that shifted colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Their movements were fluid and precise, suggesting a skeletal structure very different from human anatomy. On the 7th day after Maya's arrival, the first real test came. The ground trembled just after midday, a low rumbling that grew steadily more intense. Cracks appeared in the earth, venting steam and a noxious gas that burned the eyes and throat. "Everyone to high ground," Maya shouted, helping the slower members of the group gather essential supplies. They retreated to the rocky outcropping that backed their camp, scaling the steep face with urgency but discipline. From this vantage point, they watched as sections of the forest floor collapsed, revealing a network of tunnels beneath. "What is this?" Raj gasped, eyes wide with terror. "An earthquake." "No," Dr. Hammond said grimly, adjusting his glasses as he studied the phenomenon. "This is manufactured. Look at the pattern of the collapses. Too regular, too precise. This is one of their challenges." As if to confirm his assessment, creatures began emerging from the tunnels, arthropod-like beings the size of large dogs, with multiple segmented limbs and chitinous armor in mottled browns and grays. Their eyeless heads swiveled, sensing the air with feathery antennae. "They're hunting us," Sophia whispered, "using some kind of chemoreception." Maya quickly assessed their position and resources. "We have the high ground. That's an advantage, but we need to neutralize their sensory abilities." She turned to Dr. Hammond. "Those fungi you mentioned, the ones with chemical properties, could any of them mask our scent?" The scientist's eyes widened in understanding. "Possibly. The blue shelf-like growths near the river. They release spores that have a powerful odor when crushed." "Raj, Sophia, get as many of those fungi as you can," Maya ordered. "The rest of us will prepare defenses here. Those creatures may be able to climb." As the group sprang into action, Maya noticed a familiar shimmer in the air above them. An observer platform appeared to watch how they would handle this threat. She felt a surge of anger, but channeled it into determination. "We'll give you a show, but not the one you're expecting." When the creatures began scaling the rocky face, the humans were ready. They had created barriers of sharpened stakes at the most accessible points and positioned themselves strategically with their best weapons. The crushed fungi had been distributed among them, masking their human scent with its overpowering musk. The battle was fierce, but brief. The creatures, confused by the conflicting sensory information, were picked off one by one as they reached the defensive perimeter. Sophia's bow proved devastatingly effective, while Thomas and Maria used long spears to keep the monsters at bay. Maya moved constantly between positions, coordinating their efforts and stepping in with her knife when needed. When it was over, 17 of the creatures lay dead or dying on the rocks, while the humans had suffered only minor injuries, scratches and bruises, but nothing life-threatening. As they bound their wounds and caught their breath, Maya glanced up at the observer platform, still hovering above them. For the first time, she felt a shift in the watching alien's posture, something like surprise, perhaps even concern. "They didn't expect us to handle that so well," she said quietly to Dr. Hammond, who was applying a poultice of medicinal plants to a cut on her arm. "No," he agreed, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "I think we're exceeding their parameters." That night, gathered around a larger fire than usual, a deliberate display of their triumph, the group's mood was cautiously celebratory. They had passed the test, proving themselves capable of more than mere survival. "We should harvest those creatures," Wei suggested. "Their exoskeletons could make excellent armor, and their internal fluids." Dr. Hammond added, "I want to analyze them." If they were engineered by the observers, studying their biology might give us insights into their creators' technology. Plans were made, tasks assigned. The group was functioning with increasing efficiency, each person's skills being utilized to maximum effect. Maya watched with approval but remained vigilant. Success would bring new challenges. The observers would escalate their tests. Her prediction proved correct sooner than expected. 3 days later, as they were constructing more permanent shelters incorporating the chitinous armor from the tunnel creatures, the sky darkened suddenly. Looking up, Maya saw not clouds, but a massive object blotting out the suns, an observer ship, far larger than any platform they had seen before. A beam of light shot down, not targeting any human but striking the center of their camp. When it disappeared, a holographic image remained, a 3-dimensional map showing their current location and, some distance away, another settlement. The image zoomed in to show figures moving about this other camp. Not humans, but another alien species. Bipedal but with 4 arms and elongated, almost canine heads. The message was clear even without words. Another group was being tested, and the humans were being shown their competition. The hologram flickered and changed, showing a location equidistant between the 2 camps. A structure appeared there, something like a fortress or arena. Then both images were connected by lines that pulsed with light, converging on this central point. They want us to go there, Karim said, voicing what they all understood. To fight these other aliens. Maya studied the map carefully, memorizing the details before it disappeared. Not just to fight, she said. To compete. To prove which species is more adaptable, more resourceful. What if we refuse? Maria asked. As if answering her question, the ground beneath the camp trembled warningly. I don't think that's an option, Maya said grimly. The group spent that night in tense discussion, debating their options and preparing for the journey. The map had indicated a considerable distance, at least 3 days' travel through unknown territory. We can't all go, Maya pointed out. Some need to stay here, maintain the camp, continue gathering resources. After much deliberation, a team was selected. Maya for her combat skills and leadership, Dr. Hammond for his scientific knowledge, Sophia for her hunting prowess, Raj for his engineering ingenuity, Wei for her expertise with local flora, and Thomas for his survival skills. The others would remain behind, with Maria as their leader. Before dawn, they set out, carrying only what they could manage while moving quickly: weapons, basic tools, minimal food and water supplies, confident they could forage along the way. The dual suns rose behind them, casting their shadows long on the strange landscape ahead. The journey was arduous, challenging them with terrain unlike anything on Earth. They crossed fields of crystal formations that chimed eerily in the wind. Forests where the vegetation seemed to shift position when not directly observed. Shallow seas of a gelatinous substance that supported their weight but clung to their skin with uncomfortable persistence. On the second day, they encountered their first real obstacle, a canyon that hadn't appeared on the holographic map, suggesting the observers had created it deliberately to test them. The walls were too sheer to climb safely, and the bottom was filled with a swirling mist that Wei determined was likely toxic based on the dead creatures visible at its edges. They're watching to see how we problem solve, Dr. Hammond noted, pointing discreetly to a small platform hovering at the canyon's edge. Maya surveyed their surroundings, considering options. We need a bridge, or at least a rope system. Raj was already examining the tree-like growths near the canyon edge. These fibers are incredibly strong, he said, pulling at the stringy inner bark. If we weave them together correctly, they could support our weight. Sophia and Thomas set to work harvesting the fibers, while Raj designed a simple but effective rope bridge. Within hours, they had created a crossing that, while precarious, allowed them to traverse the canyon safely. As the last of them reached the far side, Maya glanced back at the observer platform. It had moved closer, recording their solution in detail. They're learning from us as much as we're learning from them. She realized aloud. A mutual study. Dr. Hammond agreed. Though the power dynamics remained significantly imbalanced. That night, as they made camp in a sheltered grove, Wei discovered something unexpected. A plant unlike any they had seen before, with translucent leaves that emitted a soft blue glow. Bioluminescence is common enough, Dr. Hammond said, examining it carefully. But this... He touched a leaf gently, and the glow intensified, spreading in patterns that seemed to respond to his touch. This is more like a communication system. Wei carefully harvested several specimens, and together with Dr. Hammond began experimenting, touching different parts of the plant, exposing it to various stimuli. They discovered that it responded distinctively to electrical impulses, however mild, including the natural bioelectricity of human bodies. It's almost like a primitive interface, Dr. Hammond said excitedly, a bridge between biology and technology that might not trigger the observer's prohibitions. Maya watched their experiments with growing interest. Could we use it to communicate? Maybe even to disrupt their observation systems? Possibly, the scientist replied, but we'd need time to understand it better, to cultivate it. Time we don't have right now. Maya acknowledged. But when we return... She left the implication hanging in the air. This discovery might be the key to shifting the power balance between them and their captors. On the third day, they reached the designated location, a massive structure that rose from the landscape like a hybrid of ancient temple and alien technology, built from a material that resembled black glass but was warm to the touch. It featured numerous entrances, each marked with different symbols. Now what? Sophia asked, bow ready in her hands as they surveyed the imposing edifice. We wait, Maya replied, and observe. Knowledge before action. They didn't have to wait long. From the opposite direction came 6 figures, the aliens they had seen in the hologram. Up close, they were even more intimidating, taller than humans, with sinewy builds and all 4 arms rippling with muscle beneath short, dense fur. Their faces were indeed canine in structure, with prominent muzzles and alert ears. But their eyes were surprisingly expressive, and currently filled with suspicion as they regarded the humans. For a tense moment, both groups simply stared at each other across the clearing. Then, a sound like a massive gong reverberated through the air, and symbols above each entrance to the structure began to glow. It's starting, Dr. Hammond murmured. The alien group conversed briefly in their own language, a series of growls, yips, and complex hand gestures, then approached the structure, selecting an entrance marked with a symbol resembling a spiral. We should choose a different one, Maya decided. Avoid direct confrontation until we understand the nature of the competition. They selected an entrance marked with what looked like a stylized tree or branch. As they passed through the threshold, the black glass material seemed to ripple around them, and they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with an environment unlike anything outside. A dense jungle of massive fungi and lichen-covered rock formations. with pools of luminescent liquids scattered throughout. The other group isn't here, Raj noted, peering through the strange foliage. Each entrance must lead to a different challenge. Then what are we being tested on? Thomas wondered. Their answer came in the form of a holographic display that materialized before them. Images showing various fungi and lichens. Then zooming in to reveal spores and cellular structures. The display focused on a particular species, a red shelf-like growth, and showed an animation of it being harvested and processed in specific ways. They want us to gather these, Wei said, pointing to a matching fungus growing nearby. But why? Dr. Hammond studied the animation carefully. It's showing a method of extracting compounds, I think. Yes, these could be medicinal, or perhaps nutritional supplements. A gathering challenge, then. Maya said, not combat, but resource acquisition and processing. They set to work, following the indicated procedures. The fungi were difficult to harvest. Their surfaces secreted a mild acid that irritated human skin. And their root systems were tenaciously embedded in the rock. But between Wei's botanical knowledge and Sophia's dexterity with her hunting knife, they managed to collect a substantial amount. Processing proved more complex. The animation had shown a sequence of crushing, filtering, and fermenting that required improvised tools and careful timing. Raj created simple but effective grinding stones and pressing mechanisms, while Dr. Hammond monitored the chemical reactions with scientific precision. Hours passed as they worked, aware that somewhere else in the structure, the other alien group was likely engaged in a different challenge. Were they being directly compared, or was each species being tested according to their own capabilities? Finally, they produced what appeared to be the desired result, a thick amber liquid that glowed faintly in the dim light of the chamber. Now what? Thomas asked, looking around for further instructions, as if in response. A new holographic display appeared, showing a map of the chamber with a path marked to its center. Following this guidance, they made their way deeper into the fungal jungle, carrying their precious extract. At the chamber's heart, they found a pool larger than the others, its liquid a deep blue that pulsed with inner light. The hologram indicated that they should add their amber extract to this pool. I don't like this, Sophia muttered. We don't know what reaction it might cause. That's the point, Dr. Hammond said. They're testing our willingness to take risks, to trust the instructions we're given. Maya considered their options. We came this far. Let's complete the challenge, but be ready for anything. With careful precision, Raj poured their extract into the blue pool. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the liquid began to swirl, changing color from blue to violet to a brilliant gold. The entire chamber seemed to resonate with energy, the fungi glowing brighter, the air becoming charged with an electrical current that raised the hair on their arms. The gold liquid rose from the pool, forming into a hovering sphere. Inside, they could see images: Earth, their solar system, star charts showing routes between systems. The sphere expanded, enveloping them in a three-dimensional map of space. It's a star map, Dr. Hammond breathed, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his caution. And it's accurate. That's our solar system, our sector of the galaxy. But why show us this? Wei wondered. Maya studied the map carefully, her military training helping her identify patterns. Look there, she said, pointing to a sequence of stars that pulsed in a regular rhythm. That's a navigation route, and it ends. She traced the path to its conclusion. Here, this system, this planet, they're showing us where we are. Raj realized. More than that, Maya said, her mind racing. They're showing us how to get home. Before they could fully process this revelation, the sphere collapsed back into the pool, and a new hologram appeared, showing both their group and the other alien team, who had apparently completed their own challenge. A timer appeared between the two images, counting down from what seemed to be the equivalent of 24 Earth hours. "We have 1 day," Maya interpreted. Before the next phase, they were escorted back to the structure's exterior by floating orbs of light that guided them through passages that hadn't been visible before. Outside, they found a camp had been prepared for them. Simple shelters, a fire pit, containers of water, and what appeared to be food rations. The other alien team emerged from a different exit, similarly guided to their own camp on the opposite side of the clearing. The two groups regarded each other warily across the distance. "Should we try to communicate with them?" Dr. Hammond suggested. "They might have learned something different in their challenge." "Risky," Maya cautioned. "We don't know if cooperation is part of the test or if it would be penalized." As they debated, one of the alien beings separated from its group and approached the midpoint between the camps. It carried no visible weapons and made a gesture that seemed universal. Open palms, arms spread slightly. A peace offering. Sophia murmured. Maya nodded. "I'll go. The rest of you stay alert." She walked forward slowly, her posture deliberately non-threatening but ready to react if necessary. As she reached the midpoint, she mirrored the alien's gesture, up close. The being was even more imposing, nearly 8 feet tall, with muscles that rippled beneath its short fur with every movement. Its amber eyes studied her with unmistakable intelligence. It made a series of sounds, then seemed to realize the futility of verbal communication. Instead, it reached slowly into a pouch at its side and withdrew an object, a small, crystalline structure similar to the ones they had passed during their journey. The alien held it out, then deliberately broke it in half, offering one piece to Maya. Understanding the universal symbolism of sharing, she accepted it with a nod of thanks. The crystal half was warm in her hand, and as she held it, images formed in her mind, not words, but concepts. The alien's name or designation, * swift hunter under 3 moons, * its people, * the Karavak, * and a warning, * the watchers lie, * Maya's eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure, concentrating. She tried to project her own thoughts back through the crystal. * Maya, human, Earth. The alien, Swift Hunter, tilted its head, indicating it had received her message. It nodded once, then turned and returned to its group. When Maya rejoined her team, she shared what had happened, showing them the crystal half. "It's some kind of psychic technology," she explained. "Basic concepts only, not complex communication. But it's clear they know more about the observers, the watchers as they call them, than we do." "The watchers lie," Dr. Hammond repeated thoughtfully. "About what?" "About everything, potentially." Maya said, "The purpose of these tests, what happens to the winners and losers." That night, as the others slept, Maya sat at the edge of their camp, turning the crystal fragment over in her hands. The star map they had been shown kept replaying in her mind. Why would the observers reveal their location and a route back to Earth unless it was part of a larger design? A soft footfall alerted her to someone's approach. "Wait." her face troubled in the dim light of the alien moons. "Can't sleep?" Maya asked. Wei shook her head. "I keep thinking about those bioluminescent plants we found, the ones that respond to bioelectricity." She sat beside Maya. "I brought samples with me. They've been reacting strangely since we entered this structure, almost like they're receiving signals." Maya's interest sharpened. "What kind of signals?" "I'm not sure, but they're growing at an accelerated rate, and the patterns of their luminescence have become more complex." Wei hesitated. "Dr. Hammond thinks they might be able to interfere with the observer's technology somehow, like a natural dampening field." Maya considered this new information, pieces clicking into place. The Karavak, the other aliens, they said the Watchers lie. What if this whole competition isn't about survival or adaptability at all? What if it's about finding species that can help them develop new technologies? Wei's eyes widened. Biological technologies that don't register as technology under their own definitions. Exactly. Maya nodded. They set rules against advanced technology. Then watch how we innovate within those constraints. It's not a game, it's research and development. The implications were staggering. If they were right, the observers weren't merely studying them. They were harvesting their ideas, their evolutionary adaptations. "We need to tell the others," Wei said urgently. "In the morning." Maya decided. "For now, keep monitoring those plants. They might be our best hope for disrupting whatever the observers have planned next." When dawn broke, a strange, muted affair with the black structure blocking much of the dual sun's light, Maya gathered their group and shared her theory. Dr. Hammond was particularly interested in the connection to the bioluminescent plants. "If we could amplify their natural properties," he mused, "we might be able to create a field that disrupts the observer's monitoring systems. A blind spot. And if they can't see us, they can't control us," Raj added, catching on quickly. "It's worth trying." Maya decided. "But we need to be ready for the next challenge too. Whatever happens when that timer reaches 0. They spent the hours that followed preparing on multiple fronts. Wei and Dr. Hammond worked with the bioluminescent plant samples, finding ways to stimulate their growth and response. Sophia and Thomas readied their weapons and created new ones from materials in their surroundings. Raj constructed simple but ingenious traps and defensive mechanisms that skated the edge of the technology prohibition. Maya, meanwhile, observed the Karavak camp. The other aliens were engaged in their own preparations, creating weapons that looked formidable even at a distance. Spears with multiple heads, what appeared to be slings for launching projectiles, an armor fashioned from materials similar to the chitinous plates they had harvested from the tunnel creatures. Occasionally, Swift Hunter would glance in her direction, and Maya would feel a faint resonance from the crystal fragment she kept in her pocket. Not words, but impressions. Asterisk preparation, vigilance, alliance. The last concept gave her pause. An alliance between humans and Karavak against the observers? It seemed Swift Hunter's people had reached similar conclusions about their captor's true intentions. As the timer approached 0, tension mounted in both camps. The observers had not made an appearance, but their presence was felt in the subtle hum of technology that permeated the structure, in the occasional shimmer of cloaked platforms hovering at the periphery of their vision. Whatever happens next, Maya told her team as they gathered for a final briefing. Remember that the real test isn't against the Karavak. It's against the observers and their expectations. We need to show adaptability. Yes, but also unpredictability. That's the one thing they can't plan for. When the timer finally reached 0, the ground beneath their feet vibrated, and the black structure began to transform. Sections of it shifted position, walls rising and falling, creating a new configuration, a labyrinth of corridors and chambers. With the humans and Karavak positioned at opposite ends, a holographic display appeared before each group, showing the labyrinth's layout and highlighting a central chamber. Within this chamber was an object that resembled a large gem or crystal, pulsing with energy. The message was clear: reach the center, claim the prize. "It's a race," Thomas said, studying the map. "Or a battle. We'll encounter them somewhere in the maze. And probably other challenges too." Maya added, "Stay together. Watch each other's backs." They entered the labyrinth cautiously, weapons ready. The corridors were narrow, forcing them to proceed in single file, with Sophia taking the lead and Thomas bringing up the rear. The walls were made of the same black glass-like material as the exterior, but here it seemed almost alive, rippling occasionally with patterns of energy that traveled like neural impulses. Their first obstacle came in the form of a chamber filled with the same gelatinous substance they had crossed during their journey, but unlike the shallow sea they had traversed before. This was arranged in vertical columns that rose from floor to ceiling, blocking their path. "We can't go around," Raj observed, examining the chamber's dimensions. "We have to go through." Wei approached one of the columns cautiously, touching it with a stick. The gelatinous material immediately began to engulf the wood. "It's more reactive than before," she warned, "more aggressive." Dr. Hammond studied the chamber thoughtfully. "Look at the pattern of the columns. They're not random. They're arranged like a circuit." Maya saw it too. The columns formed a pattern that resembled an electrical diagram, with clear pathways between them. "It's a puzzle," she realized. "We need to find the right path through without touching the columns." It took precious minutes of careful observation and trial and error, but they eventually identified a safe route. Single file. They navigated the narrow path between the columns, each person following exactly in the footsteps of the one before. One misstep would mean contact with the hungry gel. As they reached the chamber's exit, a distant sound echoed through the labyrinth. A howling cry that could only have come from the Karavak. "They've encountered something," Sophia said grimly. "Something dangerous. We need to move faster." Maya decided they might have found a shorter route to the center. The next section of the labyrinth presented a different challenge. Corridors that shifted position every few minutes, changing the layout unpredictably. They were forced to sprint through sections before they changed, sometimes barely making it through narrowing gaps as walls closed behind them. It was during one such sprint that disaster struck. Thomas, bringing up the rear, wasn't fast enough. A wall slid into place, cutting him off from the group. "Thomas!" Sophia called, pounding on the black surface that had separated them. A faint voice came through. "I'm all right. The corridor's redirecting me. I think I can find another way to you." Maya made a quick decision. "Keep moving. We'll meet at the central chamber." It was a risk, but splitting up now might actually work in their favor, giving them multiple approaches to their goal. They pressed on, now down to 5. The labyrinth became increasingly complex, with challenges that tested different aspects of human capability, puzzles that required scientific knowledge, obstacles that demanded physical strength, traps that could only be avoided through careful observation. Through it all, Dr. Hammond kept monitoring the bioluminescent plants, which were now glowing with unusual intensity. They're responding to something in the structure, he reported. Some kind of energy field that's similar to bioelectricity, but much more powerful. The observer's technology, Maya guessed. Can we use that? Possibly. If we reach the central chamber, where the energy concentration is likely highest. They were interrupted by a commotion ahead. Growls, the sound of combat. Rounding a corner, they found themselves in a large chamber where two Karavak warriors were engaged in battle with a creature unlike anything they had seen before. A massive, amorphous being that seemed composed of the same black material as the structure itself. Without hesitation, Sophia raised her bow and fired, her arrow striking the creature with remarkable accuracy. It let out a high-pitched wail and turned its attention to the newcomers. The Karavak warriors, momentarily surprised by the humans' intervention, quickly recovered and pressed their attack from the other side. It was an unplanned but effective pincer movement. "Aim for the central mass," Maya called out, noticing that the creature seemed to reform quickly after injuries to its extremities. Working together, humans and Karavak managed to drive the creature back, their primitive weapons proving surprisingly effective against its advanced composition. When it finally dissolved into a puddle of inert material, the two groups faced each other across the chamber, weapons still ready but hesitation in their stance. One of the Karavak stepped forward, not Swift Hunter, but another warrior with distinctive red markings on its fur. It made a gesture of acknowledgement, then pointed toward one of the exits from the chamber. Maya understood. They're saying that's the way to the center. Indeed, consulting the mental map she had memorized from the holographic display, that corridor aligned with the most direct route to the central chamber. Could be a trap, Raj cautioned. I don't think so, Maya replied. They could have let that creature attack us first, then dealt with the survivors. Instead, they fought alongside us. The Karavak warrior made another gesture, urgent, insistent, then started down the corridor, looking back expectantly. They want us to follow. Sophia interpreted. Then let's follow, Maya decided. But stay alert. The combined group, humans and Karavak, moved together through the labyrinth, communicating through gestures and demonstrations when necessary. Despite the language barrier, they developed a crude but effective system of cooperation, with each species taking point on challenges suited to their particular strengths. The Karavak proved to have superior strength and reflexes, easily navigating physical obstacles that the humans struggled with. The humans, meanwhile, excelled at the puzzles and pattern recognition challenges that seemed to confound their alien allies. As they progressed deeper into the labyrinth, Dr. Hammond continued monitoring the bioluminescent plants, which were now emitting a steady, pulsating glow synchronized with the energy patterns in the walls. They're not just responding to the energy, he told Maya quietly as they navigated a particularly complex section. They're absorbing it, growing stronger. Strong enough to disrupt the observer's systems? Possibly, especially if we can get them to the central chamber, where the energy concentration is highest. Maya nodded, a plan forming in her mind. Then that's what we'll do. Finally, after what felt like hours of navigation through the ever-changing maze, they reached a massive door that could only be the entrance to the central chamber. It was inscribed with symbols that matched both those above the entrance they had originally chosen and those that marked the Karavak's entrance. The door had no visible handle or control mechanism. After examining it carefully, Raj pointed to indentations on either side, hand-shaped for humans on one side, clearly meant for Karavak appendages on the other. It requires both species to open. He concluded, Maya and the lead Karavak warrior positioned themselves at the indentations. On a count of 3, they pressed their hands into the recesses simultaneously. The door responded immediately, the black material flowing away from the center until an opening large enough for both species to enter had formed. Beyond lay the central chamber, a vast dome-shaped space with a platform at its center. On this platform hovered the crystal they had seen in the holographic display, pulsating with inner light in a rhythm that matched exactly the glow of Wei's plant samples. But they weren't alone. Thomas was there, having found another route to the chamber, and with him was Swift Hunter, the two apparently having encountered each other and cooperated just as the main groups had. More surprisingly, floating above the chamber were multiple observer platforms, their typically hidden occupants now visible, the tall, slender beings with shifting, prismatic skin that Maya had glimpsed only briefly before. They were recording everything, their attention focused intently on the crystal. "We made it." Sophia breathed, relief evident in her voice. "But what now?" Raj asked. "Do we take the crystal? Fight the Karavak for it?" Maya exchanged glances with Swift Hunter, who had moved to join its companions. Through the crystal fragment in her pocket, she sensed not hostility, but determination, and a plan not unlike her own. "Dr. Hammond," she said quietly, "the plants, how close do they need to be to the central crystal to maximize their effect?" The scientist considered. Direct contact would be ideal, but even proximity should increase their absorption capacity exponentially. Maya nodded, then turned to Wei. "Get ready to plant them as close to the crystal as possible." She stepped forward, meeting Swift Hunter in the center of the chamber. The Karavak leader produced its own crystal fragment, which glowed in resonance with the one Maya carried. Together, they approached the platform where the larger crystal hovered. The observers above moved their recording devices closer, clearly interested in this cooperative approach. Maya and Swift Hunter raised their crystal fragments simultaneously, as if offering them to the larger crystal, a gesture that appeared to be one of supplication or acceptance of the observer's authority. But as they neared the platform, Swift Hunter suddenly emitted a series of sharp barks, commands to its warriors, who immediately took up defensive positions, weapons trained on the observer platforms. In the same moment, Maya called out, "Now, Wei!" Wei rushed forward, planting the bioluminescent samples directly against the base of the platform. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The plants began to glow with blinding intensity, their light pulsing in a pattern that clashed with the rhythm of the central crystal. The observer platforms wavered, their technology visibly disrupted by the conflicting energy patterns. The beings aboard them made sounds of alarm, high chittering noises that conveyed distress. Maya and Swift Hunter pressed their crystal fragments directly against the central crystal. Instead of offering submission, they were creating a connection, a circuit that channeled the disruptive energy of the plants through the crystalline network that seemed to be the basis of the observer's technology. The effect cascaded through the chamber, then outward through the entire structure. The black walls began to flicker, their solid appearance giving way to reveal the truth beneath. Not a physical structure at all, but an elaborate holographic environment projected by the observer's technology. "It's working!" Dr. Hammond shouted over the increasing chaos. "The entire arena is a simulation, a virtual environment maintained by their energy field." As the disruption spread, the observer's control began to falter. Sections of the labyrinth winked out of existence, replaced by glimpses of what lay beyond, the true environment of the planet they were on. And in the distance, the massive ship that had brought them here. Swift Hunter communicated urgently through the crystal link. *Freedom. Return. Now. Maya understood immediately. Everyone move. Head for the ship. This is our chance to escape. The humans and Karavak raced together through the dissolving labyrinth, following paths that now led directly to the exterior as the complex internal structure broke down. Observer platforms crashed around them, their technology failing as the disruptive wave spread. They emerged into the actual landscape of the alien planet, similar to what they had experienced in the arena, but wilder, less controlled. And there, looming above them, was the observer's ship. Its access ramps deployed as emergency systems activated in response to the technological failure. They're evacuating, Dr. Hammond realized. The disruption is affecting their ship too. Then we use their evacuation protocols to our advantage. Maya decided. We board before they can stop us. It was a desperate plan. But with the observer's systems in disarray, it was their best chance. The combined human and Karavak force fought their way up one of the access ramps, overcoming the minimal resistance offered by the few observers who tried to stop them. Once aboard, they split into teams, humans and Karavak working together based on their complementary skills. Raj and several technically inclined Karavak located the ship's navigation systems. Dr. Hammond, Wei, and others found the holding areas where more humans and Karavak were being kept in stasis, ready for future games. Maya, Swift Hunter, and a strike team secured a path to the bridge, fighting through increasingly organized resistance as the observers began to recover from the initial disruption. The final confrontation on the bridge was brief but intense. The observers, for all their technological superiority, proved physically weak and unprepared for direct combat. With their systems still compromised by the ongoing disruption from the bioluminescent plants, now spread throughout the ship by Wei and her team, they were unable to mount an effective defense. Within hours, the humans and Karavak had taken control of the vessel. The observers were contained in their own holding facilities, their fate to be decided later. The stasis chambers were deactivated, freeing hundreds of captives from both species. As the ship broke orbit, Maya stood on the bridge beside Swift Hunter, watching the alien planet recede below them through their crystal link. They shared a moment of understanding. Two species from different worlds, united by their determination to be free, to define their own destiny rather than be subjects in someone else's game. Where to now? Dr. Hammond asked, joining them at the viewport. Maya thought of the star map they had been shown. The route back to Earth that had seemed like part of the observer's manipulation, but now served as their guide home. First, we take the Karavak to their world, she decided. Then we go home. Swift Hunter made a sound of agreement, adding through their mental link, and prepare. The observers are not the only ones who play such games with lesser species. There are others, worse ones. Maya nodded grimly. Earth would need to be ready. The universe had proven to be full of dangers, but also potential allies, and humans, with their unique adaptability, their ability to make fire, tools and weapons before their captors had even made camp, had proven themselves worthy of both respect and fear. As the ship accelerated toward the stars, Maya felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The observers had wanted to test human adaptability and resourcefulness. They had succeeded beyond their expectations, and paid the price for underestimating the very qualities they sought to study. Humans hadn't just survived their game. They had changed the rules entirely.